Hello and welcome back to my channel, Home to Inspire DIY and Decor. My name is Gwen and I thank you for joining me today. If you are a returning subscriber or viewer, I appreciate it. And if you are new to my channel, welcome and I hope you consider subscribing. In my first DIY, I will be making a wreath using some supplies from the Dollar Tree, as well as other places such as Amazon, Walmart, and that's pretty much it. So this wreath form, it's also considered a picture hanging metal form that came from Dollar Tree. It came with these wire clips and it's meant to hang pictures on, but I decided to make a wreath out of it. You can still hang some pictures if you want in the spaces that are left after creating this wreath. But I think as a wreath on its own, it looks really nice. So you can do whatever you want with it. But first you will be taking some florals or greeneries of your choice. And I went with these hot bushes that came from Walmart. I've had them for months now, so they've been in my stash. I'm not sure if you can still find these, but I'm sure you can find any type of greenery out there. I used some wires from the garden section of the 99-cent store. This wire was a little on the thicker side, so in the future I probably would opt for a different wire gauge, like a thinner type of wire, or maybe Chanel stems or zip ties. I kept the hot bush in the original bouquet, and I didn't choose to cut them apart or anything like that. I just wanted them to be like the full bushiness that they were. So I just bent the stems to form like this U shape so that it would frame out the metal frame. And I connected both of the stems of each bush using that wire. I then added some lamb's ear to the center of the bushes, the hot bushes. I think that those two types of greeneries complemented each other really well. And I just connected that to the middle using the same wire that I used for the first flowers. I just continue to add some of the wires to different sections of the greenery just to securely attach it to the frame, as I did not want it to fall out. I used this burlap type ribbon that I got from Walmart. I just created this very simple 2-layered ribbon, and using some jute string, I tied it to the center of the lamb's ear, just making a knot in the back part. And then I used more hot glue just to double secure that knot. When that part was done, I went on to the next step. I took this Dollar Tree home sign and just detached the jute ribbon that came with it. I kept the eucalyptus that was on the original sign, but I did want to add a few sprigs of baby's breath to the eucalyptus just for a little bit more added interest and contrast. But before I went ahead and did that, I took some of these half wood beads that came from the Amazon store, and I just glued it onto the frame of the home sign, just giving it a little bit more of an interesting look and a finished look to this sign, so it wouldn't look so plain. I just filled the empty spots of that frame until it was completely covered. For the hanger, I used a piece of burlap ribbon. It's a wired burlap ribbon, and I got some jute string, double knotted it to the ends of each side, and that jute string is what I will be using to attach to the frame. I took 2 more pieces of jute string and I repeated the same steps. I double knotted it to the burlap ribbon, attaching it to the metal frame. And I did it to the other side as well. And when that was attached, I dovetailed the ends of my burlap ribbon. And by adding the 2 pieces of jute ribbon to the burlap as opposed to just doing one, not only does it securely attach the ribbon to the frame, it also gives it more of a balloon effect, if you will. In the next step, I took some ribbons that I had cut into small strips, making the X bow. And I wanted to put the X's 2 on each side, as you see here. And I also attached some half wood beads that are in the bigger size. Those were from a different project that I had left over that I had already painted gray and distressed it with some white paint. And I went ahead and used it for this project, adding it to the center of the X bows. I just think that it adds more of a finished look. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this one because I think it turned out beautiful. DIY number 2. The next type of wreath I'll be making is using this rainbow wreath form that came from Dollar Tree, but I'll use it upside down. I'll also be using a lot of greeneries and florals that came from Dollar Tree as well as Walmart, such as boxwood, lavender, and some other greenery pieces from the Dollar Tree. I started by cutting off pieces of this floral foam that would fit into the form. And next I took these stems that I've pre-cut and glued it into the floral foam as you see here. When adding the greenery, I decided to start from the outer corners and work my way to the middle. By doing this, it allows me to see how much I need to space in between each of the stems or the greenery, just to make sure that I have enough to cover the surface of this wreath form and to make sure that all of that floral foam is covered. And whatever doesn't get covered, you can easily mask that using different items. Like if you wanted to use Spanish moss to cover any exposed floral foam, you can do that. But in this case, I'm going to be doing something different. I'm just going to take some random scraps of burlap, and I'll use that to cover up any exposed floral foam from the back or any glue that might be seeping that is not very visually attractive. So there's many ways of masking any mistakes or any mess that might not look very nice. So you can always disguise that. And here I just continue to add all of the floral pieces after finishing with the boxwood. Then I took this unfinished wood sign from the Dollar Tree and I gave it a coat of Waverly white chalk paint. This is going to be the sign for the center of that wreath that I just created. The stencil itself was a little bit too big for this little wood sign, so I did have to figure out a way to make all the words fit onto the sign. So I couldn't just stencil the whole design in one shot. I had to do it piece by piece. I did the bless first and then repositioned my stencil directly underneath the bless word. I decided to use the remaining paint on the little squeegee and distress the corners of this wood sign to give it more of a distressed finish. To give the rope hanger a more finished look, I took a couple strips or strands of the thinner jute cord and I wrapped it multiple times around the main hanging cord, if that makes any sense. You'll see here in this clip how I do it, but you basically just keep twisting around the cord to secure the loose ends of the main hanging cord, and also it gives it more of a decorative finished look. After the rope was attached to the wreath swag, I proceeded to attach this wood sign to the middle of the wreath swag using some hot glue and again some jute rope. I taped it, or actually attached it using a felt strip down the middle of the back so I can use the jute rope to tie around the middle of the wreath. Since the wreath is uneven, it would be harder to get some touch points between the wood sign and the wreath, so that is the reason why I attach this jute rope, so that I can tie this rope to the center of that wreath swag. I did remove some of the floral pieces that was in the center. That's why you see that bald spot in the middle, because I forgot that I was attaching this wood sign, and having all of the florals right there in the middle was not allowing me to have room. So that is why I created that hollow center area so I can attach this wood sign to that section. And here I'm just trying to tie a double knot to the middle. Here is the finished look to this wreath swag. I really enjoyed making this. Let me know in the comments if this is something that you will try to recreate. DIY number 3. We're getting into another type of wreath swag using the same rainbow wire form, different types of greenery and florals as you see here. And I'm using the same principle of keeping all the bunches together in the stems that they came in. I'm just bending the stems to create like a U shape to follow the same shape as the wire wreath form. Then I'm using some of this garden wire to attach the stems to the wire wreath form. I started off by using this, but I found that the wire itself was too thick and it wasn't giving me a tight fit to securely attach the florals to the frame. So I decided to go a different route and switched it up by using some chenille stems. Just some stems that I had left over from other projects. Doesn't matter what color you use, but the closer you can get to the color of your stems or the florals that you're using, the better to mask the stems. But you can always cover that up using some fabric. Next, I took a different type of greenery, wrapped some chenille stem around it, and attached it to the frame. I just created a layered effect until I got everything arranged the way I wanted it. I used some wood tag ornaments, or actually chipboard, that came from Christmas. Used the back side of it, painted it this apothecary green color by DIY paint. I also created a decal to add to this tag using my Cricut machine. And here it is attached to the wood tags. I took this furniture marker in the color black and I swiped it on the edges of this wood tag to give it a distressed look. I felt like it looked too plain and too clean. I'm more about the distressed rustic look, so I wanted this to look a little bit more rustic. And when I was happy with how that looked, I added some rub-on transfers that came from Dollar Tree. It's those little leaves that you see. And just like I did with the last project, I created a hanger using some nautical rope this time, attaching it to the metal frame, finishing it off with some strips of rope, and covering the back with some burlap. And this is the finished look. I think it turned out wonderful. It fits so nicely into any farmhouse decor. DIY number 4 is a metal frame picture hanger. Just like the first DIY, I'm using one of these picture hanger frames that came from Dollar Tree, but this time it's in the white color. I took some random greenery. I have lamb's ear and some other type of leaf. I'm not sure what the name is called, but it came from Walmart. And this blessed sign was a Hobby Lobby clearance from maybe a year ago. And a rag bow, or a messy type of bow that I use by cutting off strips of random ribbons, farmhouse ribbons, and I just layered it using an X pattern and attaching it all together with a jute string. I start off by doing a dry fit, which pretty much means like you're trying to design how you want the layout to be without actually attaching anything permanently. So I was doing a dry fit to see how I wanted everything to be arranged. Using these pieces of greenery, I knew I wanted to have some type of droopy effect, this time on the top. And since this will be used as an actual picture hanger or maybe a memo board of some sort, I wanted to create the floral greenery on the top. Here, everything has been attached to the frame. I created this little burlap bow, attached it to the center of the messy bow. Here is the final reveal of all the 4 wreaths that were created farmhouse style.